Hi, and welcome to our LinkedIn video training series. This is video number 2, how to use LinkedIn to hunt for leads. If you're watching this video, please make sure you view video number 1 in the series, how to optimize your LinkedIn profile for lead generation, because these LinkedIn training videos are meant to be viewed in consecutive order. Once again, I'm Kevin Thomas Tully, along with Philip Cardwell and Scott Offord. So, Philip, can you please lead us into the best way to use LinkedIn to hunt for leads?
Yes, let's go back for just 1 second and talk about how important it is. We've already said that 80 to 90% of the importance of whether or not you're going to be successful in hunting down leads is going to be your tagline or your headline of 120 characters. After that, your summary is going to play an important part. As you mentioned, the first video will go back and explain all of those. And if we could take a look, for instance, at the way that I have done mine, this is a perfect example. You're trying to make it so that when you visit a person and they see what you're about, your photo, your name, and that headline or tagline, as we call it, that is when they make the decision as to whether or not they want to do business with you or they want to even connect with you. So let's use mine as an example real quick. If you look at it very quickly, I tell them exactly what I do: crowdfunding and marketing expert. Okay, that should eliminate any other questions about what does this guy do. All right. Second, and what's more important is you need to tell them that unique selling point. I help businesses, inventors, and filmmakers with crowdfunding, marketing, and advertising. Okay. So now, how do you do that? How do you use that portion to go out and actually bring in leads? I'm going to give you the best example that I can, and it works for me every time. Let's suppose that tonight I want to go out and I'm going to visit multiple profiles of startups. I'm going to put, and now the reason, let me explain why I would do that. Understanding that a lot of startups are seeking funding and they're seeking marketing and advertising. Okay, so what I would do is I would go to the title section and I would plug in the title section, and I'm primarily going to deal with the United States too, but in their title I would put the word startup as one word. And as I did that, I would go out that night and I would visit X number of people, depending on whether or not you use any type of automation or do it on your own. But I would go out and I would visit people current, not past. I don't really care about any past connections. They may have opened startups or done them multiple times, but I want those that are current. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to visit those people who have the current title of startup in their particular category. Now, if you look at these people that pull up, consultants to technology startups, startup ideas, startup mentor, these are all people who have an interest in startups in some way or another. Look at Joe on there, startup founder. Okay, a lot of these are going to be people who do not need your services, but an awful lot of them will be people who do need your services. It's all a numbers game. So what happens is, inevitably, any night that I do this, the next day I'll get emails that say something along the lines of, how ironic it is you visited my profile. I've just founded a brand new company. We're considering ways to raise our first round of funding. We see that you are an expert at crowdfunding. We've heard of equity crowdfunding before, but we don't really know what it is. So can we set up a call and see whether or not there's a match? The same holds true for filmmakers. If I put filmmaker in current and I search filmmakers, I'll find that I'll get calls or either emails the next day which will say, we've secured $1 million in tax credits in the state of Georgia. We're looking to raise another $3 million. We noticed that you crowdfund. Can we have a conversation about the potential of you helping us with the crowdfunding and then the marketing and advertising of an independent film or a documentary or what have you? So it's really all about your subject or tagline, and then it is about making the exact right connection with your potential prospect or who you're going out to show that skill set or that benefit that you have to offer to.
Right, right. And Philip, I think one of the reasons why this is so great with LinkedIn is because it's really one of the only professional social networks that allows other people to know when you visited their profile, right? So unlike Facebook or Twitter, just by visiting somebody's profile, it gives them
Well,
an indication right in their notifications here, right?
you're absolutely right, Scott, and this is so different than anything else. I don't even really consider LinkedIn social media. And if you go back and you remember what we, taught in our first video about how important that tagline is, and then your summary, then you understand that if you take this as an opportunity and you think about this as what you're actually doing. LinkedIn now has 380 million users. What you're actually doing is you're able to take your targeted message, almost like Google pay-per-click, and you're able to put that targeted message in front of those people who are targeted the same way you would target them in either Facebook advertising or Google pay-per-click or what have you. You're able to target them in LinkedIn, but you're able to do it for free. And so it is in a way like advertising and marketing, and this is why it's changing LinkedIn so much, because it used to be used for basically a place to put your resume, and
Hmm.
that's no longer the way to do it. With all these professionals and everyone looking to make connections and do business together, it's important that you show them what you have to offer them, not who you are, where you work, anyone. I mean, if you're secure in your job, you work for IBM, and you never intend to work for anyone else, and you simply just want to meet people on LinkedIn, don't watch these training series. They're not going to be any good to you. But if you want to go out and you want to get business, you want to generate leads, then you need to follow these instructions, because this is the way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So really, what you're saying is just make sure that uh, your headline or tagline, as you call it, really just matches the type of person that you're looking for, and really gives
It
that benefit.
it has to, because let's do the one, for instance, ask me how I help CEOs and business owners triple their company's growth rate while working fewer hours. Now, if I go show this to someone who works in a position, a low-level position, at just any company in general, they don't care. They're not going to care about how Rick is able to help CEOs and business owners triple their
Right.
company's growth rate. I mean, it doesn't matter to them. So you have to make the match between what you're actually able to offer people and the people that you know or you feel like will either now or in the future need that benefit.
No, actually, we'll go to Kevin. What do you think about your headline? Is it static? Is it something that you have to keep up there all the time? Do you ever change it around?
That's a very good question, Scott. And before we get to that, I just want to piggyback on something that Philip just mentioned there about this particular headline on this particular profile. It especially targets a certain buyer persona, and the way that you really want to optimize your LinkedIn profile is that you have to think about who you want to attract. Who is your typical buyer or your ideal prospect? And you've got to ask yourself one question. Would they care? Do they care that you won the second grade spelling bee award, or you were the varsity captain of the of the football team in high school, or that you won the most improved award, or that you crushed your sales quota for 8 consecutive quarters? That is not something that your buyer or your prospect really cares about. So those
Right.
kind of things, keep them out of your summary, keep them out of your headline. The one thing that, to answer your question, Scott, I look at my headline as not being something static. I'm always A/B testing it depending upon the results, trying to hone it in so that I will have something that my buyers are and my prospects are going to respond to. And
Hmm.
depending upon how when I look at other profiles, if I get reaction back, then it's going to be something where if I'm not getting the response I need, then it's time for me to tweak it. So that's to answer your question. Yes, it's always an ongoing process.
Great. Anything else to add there, Philip?
No, it's just I was going to say the same thing. The only way this differs is if you happen to be looking for a job and you do need to use it more as a resume, then you may want to put those accomplishments because they may be important to a potential employer. Other than that, when it comes to what we were just saying on the headline part of it, I typically will keep 4 to 5 different headlines because some people are trying to approach such a broad audience that it's almost impossible to address that audience in 120 characters. So what you may want to do is you may want to keep 4 or 5 headlines and then alternate those headlines out depending on who you intend to visit for that series. And by series, I always recommend that someone visit a particular prospect or type of prospect for at least a week, because not everyone views their LinkedIn account on a daily basis. What you really don't want to happen is you visit a prospect using a particular headline. Let's say you're targeting CEOs in Rick's case, and you visit him today and he looks at the headline 2 weeks later after you've already moved on, and now let's say you're targeting CFOs or chief financial officers. Now all of a sudden he doesn't see it as relative to him anymore. So when you change these headlines out, at least leave them up and search for the same category of prospect for at least a week.
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, so make sure, like we said, you go back and watch our first video if you haven't on setting up your profile, and stay tuned for our next video in our series. Thank you.